Good morning. I woke up early today and because of a thought, I woke up and my mind just started working and I couldn't go back to sleep. I was thinking about money, how the world used to be and how the world is right now. In a time which money was still connected to nature, meaning money was basically gold, silver, yes, and other metals. Money wasn't very abundant in the hands of the population. Money was very controlled by the hands of a few. And since it was nature, the mediator, it was nature, right, that would deal with the abundance of this resource. People, had to follow the lead of Mother Nature, right? So there wasn't a lot of availability of this resource. So people had to find other ways to get by. One of these ways was to develop one's skills. People would start very early dealing with the world, honing their skills, being in contact with everything and developing relationships with others. Well, nowadays we call it child labor. But back in those days, no. It was essential that everybody would get their hands on the matter and develop skills as fast as possible. Skills like taking care of a small garden in which you could harvest from the seasoning, the small parts, like seasoning, to the big parts, like, I don't know, entire legumes, lettuce, cucumbers, or tomatoes, or even animals, eggs, chickens, sheep, pig. And to take care of all this from scratch requires lots of learning and skills, right? So, in a time there wasn't that much abundance of money, people had to develop skills to deal with the world. If, for instance, someone was organizing a birthday party, they were not going to pick up their phone and just you know call in food from abroad, from the other side of the world. No, they had to develop skills to use what they had at their immediate proximity. And depending on one's skill, it would be quite successful or not. Some people were quite good at making pastry and bakery and stuff like that, using the rudimentary ingredients that they had at their disposal. And others was not so good at that. That's how skills develop, right? And people used to trade in skills. Okay, I'm having a birthday tomorrow. You prepare the cakes because you're skillful, and then one day when you need some of my skills, I'll come and help you. They just didn't pay because money didn't quite wasn't abundant that much. So people would exchange skills. Help me today, I'll help you tomorrow in whatever you require of my skills. This would develop, of course, relationships with people. It was very common. People would ask, instead of paying, they would give up their time. Very, very common. Okay, I'm going to have a sip of coffee. Money was in the hands of a few, the upper classes, right? And the upper classes pretty much owned everything, giving birth to this type of feudal system. And there was no, birth castration drugs. So families was big. There was a lot more humanity, I can tell you. There was a lot more humanity back in those days that there is now. So everybody got along, so to speak, as long as they had skills, people skills, or skills they could trade. People who had this resourcefulness would get by rather easily. The ones who didn't had, those types of resources, would have more difficult time, right? There was no need for money as long as you had skills. You could trade. People manufacture everything from scratch. They didn't buy the end product. This is a modern concept where in which you have a salary and you buy everything already made. No, people built everything from scratch. Literally, even their own clothing, shoes, their own houses. you know it's not like nowadays that you need a permit and an engineer and architect to build you a house. Back in those days, people just got together. All right, I found some quarry or some bricks, some terquite in which we can make some bricks. Let's build a house here. And the village just got together and everybody shared their own skills. They would share their time and they helped each other. No need for money. This, at the end of the day, people would, just look at the end product, ate a nice meal together, yeah, that everybody helped raised, all those animals and stuff and legumes and whatever. And that's how it used to be. With abundance of money, people have become more distant from each other. It lacks that connectivity. People lack that connectivity that used to happen in the past. So at some point they opened the floodgates, because it was Mother Nature, quote unquote, that was the mediator of this thing called money or economy. At some point they were like, okay, um, we have to come up with a strategy to convince people to drop the gold standard and go for paper. It was a it was a multi-generational plan. It wasn't something that happened right away. You have to first to grease the wheels, right? So they start introducing paper money. Uh, I would say, the quantity of gold is so big. Instead of walking around in your pocket, why don't you take this promissory note that explains the user that the equivalent of gold is at the bank. So the bank became the mediator instead of Mother Nature. You see, and that is how it all started, in my opinion, with the printing of this paper, this promissory note, this paper that would replace the real metal, the real resource from nature. Because why not print more? And we would create this thing called an economy. In the past, people used to trade skills. There was no need for money. Hence, there was no need to go to school. You would learn it on place. From early on, you would learn a skill. You would learn, right? But once money, the paper money, came into the equation, then it was more advisable. You would become more successful if you get quote unquote educated, because skills was no longer actually, you know skills that had helped you so far was no longer that valuable. They wanted people skillful in desk jobs, for instance. So reading, writing, and calculating became imperative. So the schooling system had to be, had to be more invested on, because people could buy, with this excess of paper, that they call economy. People then could buy services from others. They could buy everything already made, which opened the market for foreign. I mean, this started small, like a virus, like an infection. Start little, Yeah, people started getting more, sitting down behind desks, pushing papers, and the people became less and less working with the materials, with the raw materials, until we got into the industrial complex that we have now. That it's mainly machinery and chemicals that produce everything. It's no longer, humans, because humans became so expensive. You see, it's slippery slope. Ever since we decided to stay away from nature, to detach from nature, as nature being the arbiter, and then when man became the arbiter, this you could say is around the industrial revolution, and when we abandoned the gold standard to the paper, printing paper standard, what they call fiat currency or whatever. And it's no longer nature the mediator, is man the mediator. So in my opinion, that's what gave birth to this modern world in which money is just a number in a piece of paper, and it's just speculation. To me, it's just speculation. What I'm trying to say is, no matter how much money you have or allegedly have, if there's no one that has skills, it's pointless. For instance, you go to a restaurant nowadays and food is mediocre. I'm sorry, food has become mediocre, and this is the result of this. I hope I'm trying. I hope I'm passing the message. I don't think I am passing the message correctly. For instance, when in a place in which there was no money, people had to earn their place and their trust with their skills, so they would cook, beautiful meals and based on natural products. And but nowadays, with the abundance, this explosion of the economy, skills are not really required. So it became a question of quantity, not of quality. So when you go to a restaurant, food is going to be mediocre because the ingredients was grown, in the industrial complex. The people who work there couldn't care less. It's just a job. So if you want excellency nowadays, you actually have to do it yourself. For instance, if I want to eat lamb, which is something I really like, I noticed that I have to go to the source, to the farmer, or I have to raise them myself. Because if you go to a butcher or any other place, what you're gonna get is hormone, fed garbage animals. That's the result of opening up the so-called economy, of letting go of nature as the mediator, and man became the mediator. You will only get, mediocrity out of it, and people stopped hunting their skills, especially their people skills, because they can just buy off. Well, you can't buy, excellency. You can't. No matter how many you put, you arrive at a point. uh, this also gave birth to the modern world that we see nowadays, right? The world of consumerism. Yeah, the world of consumerism exists because of this overabundance of money. People have come up with ways for you to spend money fast, creating this thing called an economy, right? They don't want you to keep money that long. That's why it's called a currency. Well, in the past, when it was gold, you were advised to keep it, in your pocket because it didn't lose value at all. Gold doesn't lose value still today, but paper money loses value. If it is not flowing, then it loses value, what they call inflation. What they're doing is reaching in your pocket and stealing from you, but um, so you have to keep it flowing, right? Keep the money flowing, which creates consumerism. Now, materialism. Uh, Materialism benefits a group, especially again, this is fueled by greed and not by excellency, and gives birth, consumerism gives birth to mediocrity as well. Because, for example, there are going to be countries that own or possess lots of resources, right? And you might have noticed these countries are constantly at civil war, or some regime is, taking over. So you kind of wonder, is it because they have lots of, resources and are rich, or maybe it's foreign powers that are constantly, bamboozling those areas? Sometimes you kind of wonder, right? And then you look at the modern, situation, these emerging economies, quote unquote, of these wealthy countries, they are being taxed because of the environment or something like that. And you kind of wonder, because this belief that the environment is, oh, I'm sorry, that the planet is going to disappear, or this belief, this end of times, Armageddon is only, taken serious by countries actually who don't have resources. Have you? It's very funny, isn't it? Only, the ones who don't have materials believe in the climate, bullshit, and the ones who have resources, couldn't care less. It's all bullshit. Yeah, it's indeed bullshit. What they want is to capitalize on emerging, emerging economies. The already settled economies want to capitalize by taxing them, all sorts of weird taxes and restrictions and whatever. That's all the whole purpose. It's all socialist politics, so to speak. Again, socialism, I think, in all of these, communism, socialism, capitalism, all of these isms emerge from consumerism, from um, materialism, right? Um, well, nowadays people are so detached from each other. Their plan is to get a high-paying middle-class job. So everybody is focusing on getting, getting into university, getting a doctorate, a diploma, a certificate, a degree, and no matter what, it's very funny. Sometimes they take degrees in history and psychology, and then they try to apply, and nobody wants them. Yeah, that's not very useful. In modern days, the market is just saturated with these people, um, and they think they can have a salary and then buy everything already. They can buy their home or pay their rent and then buy their food on their plate. They can call in food, they can call in everything. They don't have to learn skills, how to cook, how to fix their own clothes, they don't need those skills. They think they can buy everything, and that's the result of the overabundance of money, right? Not so long ago, when the first automobiles came out, everybody knew how to put together an engine and fix it in their own house. They even had a place with all the tools required. The same thing for your clothes. Everybody had a Singer, one of those machines, analog machines to fix clothing. Yeah, everybody had that skill, you know. But with the overabundance of money, when the gold standard, was replaced with the fake fiat paper bullshit that we have now, everybody just doesn't need skills anymore. Let's just buy everything already made. But this is very bad for humanity, and you can see the results because people kind of grew distance, kind of grew materialistic. There's no relationships anymore between people, and you know couples are more easy to break up because everything is just about materialism. Even, I mean, everything is affected, and I'm telling you, predicting From the gold standard went to the fiat. From the fiat, it seems, I hope not, it seems that there's a push, right? It seems they want to go digital, and that is the final coup that will break the camel's back. Then there's no point in getting out of the house or learning a trade or learning skills. There's no point. You can't hold it in your hand. You are like the donkey following a carrot if it goes digital. You know, I- it's um, it's crazy. It's so how to fix this? We have to go backwards actually into a time where money was scarce. Oh, but that's just not fair. Yeah, there's nothing fair in this world. There's nothing fair. If you're looking for justice, it's not in this world. I mean, in the Egyptian pantheon, I think it's the Egyptians, justice is in the other world, sort of like limbo. That place between heaven and or hell. There's a place. What's it called? For the Christians, I think it's called purgatory. I think others call it limbo or whatever. But you know what I'm talking about. It's where St. Peter or whatever is waiting to judge people, so to speak. I think it's probably the equivalent. And and Lady Justice doesn't exist in this reality, never exist. It's in the other world. Yeah. When we are when we are passing, you'll meet Lady Justice. But it's not justice is not in this world. So I think in the past, when people used to trade in skills, and the economy was rather small, right? I think the world was a lot better than it is now in terms of pollution, in terms of spirituality, in terms of community. People was more, connected, and I think, people got together. It solidified people together when money was scarce. With the overabundance of money, people have become detached from each other, distant from each other. And I think we are living through unique times that never happened in history, and in which the individual is growing faster in isolation. Now people don't talk to each other, don't even look at each other. They are focusing on the obsidian mirror in their hands. And a situation is created when people grow distant from each other. The spiritual world starts knocking. You see, the spiritual world. So there's going to become, I'm predicting, more of UFO operations and ghost operations and all sorts of I mean, the other day I got visited by a succubus, yeah, I got but anyway, um there's going to become more of these supernatural, events happening as people grow apart from each other. And because of these devices that we have now, and it's not good, honestly, for humanity at all. So I've been talking for 25 minutes already. The thing is, I didn't had quite clear, in my head. So that's why I kind of went on a lot of tangents. All right. Have a nice day.